Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 46, recording on Monday, December 30th, the day after the Vikings beat the Packers at home 27-25. The show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the local area. You can find branches all over the place. The people running that thing, Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson, really good guys. Huge Vikings fans. You want to talk to somebody who knows about this team at your local bank, I will tell you guys, go to First Resource. They will be very willing to rehash everything that happened on Sunday and this entire year that has been, as you guys know, having listened to the show, an absolute blast and so much fun to be a part of. If you don't know me, on a day-to-day basis, I cover the Vikings for The Athletic. That is why I am here inside the building. Kevin O'Connell will have a press conference probably by the time you guys are listening to this. And you got to be here for that. There are questions to ask, answers to get. So always enjoy talking to KOC. Talk to people a lot inside the building about this team, about what is going on a weekly basis. Watch the film, look at a lot of advanced metrics, and like to bring all of that into one bundle of stuff that you can get here on the podcast. Usually we do a couple of these a week. Like to preview some of the games early in the week, like to give thoughts. And what we've been doing the last few weeks is taking questions from you guys. So I put out this call on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now. And you guys ask questions at Alec_Lewis. You guys ask them to me on Twitter and I just run through them. So that's what we're going to do today. Like I said, I cover the Vikings for The Athletic. So if you're here, you want more, go read and check out some of the stories over there. But what a game that was. I mean, what a performance. And it got very dicey towards the end. You know, the score gets to 9. You're like, I've been focused on what I'm going to write here. And now this game's as close as it's been. So got to relock in. But, I mean, I said this in writing, but Brian Flores, what he did in that game, I hope people appreciate the willingness that he showed to just pull an absolute rabbit out of his hat. And what do I mean by that? You guys are probably wondering. Well, the Vikings entered the game playing like 9% man coverage or cover one, which is just one high safeties man coverage across the board. They played that like 9% of the time throughout the first half across this entire season. And then on Sunday against the Packers, they played that like 40, 50% of the time in the first half. And so Matt LaFleur, the Packers head coach, did not come into a game with the call sheet, structure to be able to beat man coverage because he didn't think that was going to happen. And that's just a defensive coordinator outwitting an opponent. And that is a group of defensive players who are capable of playing man coverage, which I have had questions about because of these cornerbacks' age, because of Brian Flores not playing man coverage. I had questions about whether they could really do that or not. And it's also a group of players just being so confident and convicted in what their coach is asking them to do that they are willing to do whatever, even if that means running more than they've run all year. And I'll tell you, like I was in the locker room after the game, and these cornerbacks were exhausted. They had given it everything they had, and that's what it took to beat an offense that is clearly one of the best in the league, clearly one of the most coached, the best coached teams in the league. I mean, that is a dynamic group. And you could see how flustered Jordan Love looked. And to me, that was a lot on Brian Flores. And then, I mean, we could talk about the scene post-game where Sam Darnold does media availability stuff on the field with Tom Brady. Then he walks in the locker room after everybody else, and they had schemed to douse him with water once he got back in the locker room, kind of like you would on like a little league team or something, or like a high school basketball team. You win a tournament, the coach comes in, you douse them with water. Like that is this professional team where these guys get paid a lot of money, where there is a lot of ego at play, where there are a lot of priorities involved. This team has the feel of like a U team. I've said it to family, I've said it to friends, and it's been pretty freaking cool to watch. And then for Sam Darnold to have that moment, considering his path, I mean, I will say, and I've written this as well, like I don't think he ever doubted his own ability, but I do think he is grateful and appreciative for what it means to be in a situation like this that is unquestionably maximizing his talent. And you saw the dousing water scene, and standing off to the side was Kevin O'Connell just watching, shaking his head. And I saw someone tweet like, or it might have been the Vikings, like KO watching the culture that he's built. But that's really what that was. Like everything that Kevin O'Connell has talked about with Sam Darnold to the team, just talked about publicly to the media, all of that going back months, going back to April. I mean, the fruits of all of that showed itself in that scene. So just so freaking cool to be a part of it. And then, like, for me, you walk around the locker room, talk to these guys post game, and it's, I mean, like Cam Akers, you talk to Cam Akers. Well, this is a guy who's come back from 2 Achilles tears. So what kind of adversity has he been through, and what does he bring to the table from the mental makeup standpoint? And then you bounce around. You talk to Jonathan Bullard. Jonathan Bullard is a defensive tackle, a run-stopping guy. John Gruden calls him a body snatcher with what he does in the run game, which I laugh at because he makes me laugh, for better or for worse. And Jonathan Bullard has been he's a journeyman. This guy has been all over the map in terms of the NFL, and he's found a place here that values what he does well. Then you bounce around the locker room, and it's Cam Bynum, who is a bundle of joy and positive good energy. And then you move over to Blake Cashman and what he's meant to this group as a guy who values playing for the team that he grew up rooting for. And then you move over to Harrison Smith and how much he appreciates the opportunity that he has right now at his age to play in a defense that juices him up, that gets his mind going, and to be winning at a level that he never has here. And then you move over to Stephon Gilmore, who has done it before and who had other opportunities. He could have signed a lot of places in training camp. Instead, he chose here because of Brian Flores, because of this culture, and now he's enjoying it. So it is a special group. The players say it, but if you're around it, there's no, like, it's not media bias. It's not homerism. It is just the reality of what it is like to be in that locker room every day and to watch these guys mingle together. It is incredibly impressive. You feel fortunate to be around it. You feel grateful to be a part of it. And I know you guys listening to this have to just be having a ball getting to root for a team that you can see is as close as it is. So that's kind of my opening thought that I felt like passing along. We're going to get to the questions right now, and just I'm just going to tick them off. Like I say every time, I don't come into this with a script. I haven't looked at a lot of these questions, so it's just top of the dome, top of my head, running on Jersey Mike's, which I had this morning this morning. I mean, I'm not in the airport. No, I had Jersey Mike's this morning. I had a wrap. I'm trying to be healthy, whatever. All I can say is I've eaten Jersey Mike's every week. I'm not a superstitious guy, but the reality is it's working. So we're going to keep pumping. All right, to you guys questions. Let's go. First question, Andrew Grill 7. I like when he communicates on Twitter. Nice guy, seems like a good guy. Have you booked a hotel room in New Orleans for February yet? Come on, man. I like I just said, I'm not superstitious, but I'm not. Look, this is a 1 week at a time operation. And all due respect, as much as I joke about the cliche, when you do my job, and we got to have stories for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I mean, it's got to be locked in for right now. I got to report my butt off for these stories and get them done. But no, should I, as like a planner, probably have something booked? Yes. Now, given me being honest with you, Andrew, I'm not the best planner in the world. My parents are laughing at this because they know how bad I am. But we will cross that bridge when that bridge is worth crossing. And man, I hope it's worth crossing, even if I'll be running on absolute adrenaline, nothing else. All right. JD Vikes at Vikes Talk 1. What can we realistically expect from the Vikings offense against a banged up Lions defense? The Lions are favorites, but I just don't see why. Well, I believe they're favored. By the time I looked last night, it was like 2.5. And so I don't know how familiar you guys are with how Vegas operates, but a lot of times home field advantage is 3 points. And so teams are power rated, and then they add like that home field advantage on. So if you take away those 3 points, then there's a chance the Vikings are power rated higher than the Lions in this game. I mean, you know just as well as I do, that place is going to be absolutely electric. That team is that town. They are just symbiotically, whether that makes sense as a word here or not, they are paired together. They fuel each other. They feed off each other. They really are each other. They're a reflection of one another. And so that place is going to be wild. Eminem is going to be blaring before the game. There will be towels waving. There will be chill bumps. It will not be fair. I will not be able to sit still. I feel bad for the reporters sitting next to me because I'm going to be as antsy as I've ever been for that environment. But to your initial question, what can we realistically expect? Well, I believe Nick Mullins threw for 400 yards against Detroit last year. It might have been last year. That seems right. And to your point, the Lions do not have Carlton Davis. We'll see about like all the other guys, the Anzalonis, the Terrion Arnold. I mean, the injury report's going to be very interesting to watch. They also don't have their best two pass rushers, Aiden Hutchinson on the edge, Aleem McNeil internally. And so I bet the Lions, they're having to weigh internally in that building this week. I know this for a fact. They will have to weigh. Do we try to pressure Sam Darnold, which is going to take guys out of coverage? Because if we don't get there with pressure, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison are going to be it's going to be routes on air. Or do we not pressure, give Sam Darnold enough time, and then we have to cover for a long time? Neither one sounds optimal if I'm Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator. And that's why I think, to your question, JD Vikes, it is going to be very hard for this Lions defense to stop this Vikings passing game. And it's going to be hard for anybody to stop this passing game when the quarterback is playing well as Sam Darnold is playing, and you have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and you have Jalen Naylor and TJ Hawkinson. I want to make it very clear. I'm going to write about Jordan Addison and what he's done because he is deserving. He has had a heck of a stretch here, and the Vikings have absolutely needed him with the way defenses are committing coverage to Justin Jefferson. But I was as impressed with Jalen Naylor in Sunday's game as almost anyone else. I mean, it's not just the over-the-top touchdown, which he takes, it's a single high safety. He takes the edge, and Sam Darnold finds him deep. But he made a catch behind his body. He made a leaping grab. He separates easily. He runs routes smoothly. And I know he has not been perfect this year. There have been a couple big drops. I think about the Rams drop in the red zone that potentially could have won the Vikings that game if he catches that ball. So it's not like he's been perfect, but he caught 8 passes on Sunday. Like I said, he's a separator. He's fast. He's physical enough to play in the run game, and he can produce when he is in one-on-one coverage. And to have that guy as a 6th-round pick that they drafted in 22, it's very nice to have, and he's a very critical piece. And we haven't seen TJ Hawkinson really, really break out. He's never been, since he's been here, he's not the most yards after catch guy, but from a possession perspective, he is very capable. So, again, just to go back to the initial question, I think you can realistically expect what we've seen now for weeks against defenses. I think the Packers defense presents some different and interesting and potentially more problems than this Lions defense does. So, I'm going to study it a lot this week. I'm going to watch a lot of film. I'm going to look at how the Lions have defended the Vikings in years past. And I know they've tried a lot. There was the 2022 Jeff Okudah game where he was just as physical as possible with Justin Jefferson. But and I love Brian Branch, and I don't love Kirby Joseph because I don't know about him as a player in general, but in terms of the way he operates. But I know he's a good player when he's on the field. Even if he is as tough, borderline, you know what I'm talking about, as he is. So it's going to be very interesting. All right, Eric Hansen at Hands Farms. You have to propose an alternative to the announced onside kick. Go. Feel free to get weird with it. It's just like the NBA. When you call a timeout late in the game, you get to have it at midfield. It's midfield. I'm in the football mode. Holy cow. When you get to have it at half court and you get a possession that is the probability actually exists, I love that. Maybe it's not totally fair, but I don't know. I think making the onside kick to where the probability of getting it is a 35% chance, to me, I'm all for that. And so maybe that's, you move the defense back and you get more yardage. You guys are probably screaming at this what an idiot. You shouldn't get it rewarded. But I just think for the sake of absolute entertainment value, that's where I would go. I know I probably didn't answer that question to your liking, Eric Hansen, but I'm giving it my best shot. All right. Here we go. James K at Fled Shanders. How would you rate the 280 nachos? 280 nachos. And is this score influenced by Saturday night discount? It's funny. I was at Station 280, this dive bar in Minnesota, on Saturday night. I'd never been there before. It's in the middle of nowhere. Maybe it's like the most famous place in Minnesota, and you guys are laughing at how out of it I seem. Anyway, I got the nachos. They were exceptional, but even better about that place, and this is not an ad. I've got no tie to Station 280, but if they want to pay for the show, I am all on board for it. They give like a 2-for-1 beer deal. I think every day. So you buy 2 beers and you get 1 free. I don't really know. That's like some Columbia, Missouri college stuff going on. I've never really heard that, but I mean, I don't know. Station 280 had it going on, and so the nachos were good too. I mean, I've got in the nacho. I'm going to get into it here. I love it doesn't have to be artisan nachos. Just give me good tortilla chips with a good Colby Jack shredded cheese, and then sprinkle some queso on it. Give me your standard shredded lettuce that you get at the grocery. That's I mean, it costs $2.99. It's like, this is not good lettuce, but it's so good on those nachos. And then, yeah, I don't need crazy toppings, but if you give me that, really well, the shredded cheese melted perfectly to where you got to kind of pull it apart with some queso on it. Woo, buddy. Really good. Sorry, I'm going off the rails, but I'm absolutely exhausted. So we're going to keep rolling. The Jeffro. Why do the Vikings keep letting teams back into games? Well, yesterday specifically was there's a distinct reason why. The Vikings defense, like I said at the top, they played man coverage. And you guys, I'm sure you know, but just to give you an idea, man coverage means man everywhere he goes. And that man, the receiver, could go 40 yards downfield. And that means you got to stick with them for 40 yards. And then the next play, they might go 40 yards again. So you got to stick with them for 40 yards again. And guess what happens when you're running 40 yards after 40 yards after 40? It is a lot of running. It is a lot of fatigue on the hamstrings. It is a lot. And ultimately, down the stretch for this cornerback group that is mostly older, except for Byron Murphy Jr., who has had a really good year, I think, and is due for a very nice payday, whether it's here or elsewhere. And aside, his agent is Danielle Hunter's agent. You saw the contract he received this past offseason, so it is not going to come at an easy cost. Okay, now back to the segment about giving up, the lead late in games. When you plan so much for man coverage the way the Vikings did prior to the week, that means it's less time allocated on potential zone coverage, and it also means they don't want to play zone coverage because they feel like Jordan Love can pick apart those zone coverages. But down the stretch, that's kind of what happened. So to me, yesterday specifically, it was running out of gas a little bit from the corners running perspective. It was Jordan Love kind of finding a rhythm, getting a beat on it. It was the Packers adapting to what they were seeing. And Matt LaFleur said after the game that he felt like they didn't adapt quick enough. And there have been games, it's very illuminative. There have been games in Kevin O'Connell's time as the Vikings head coach where the offense stalls. And you're like, God, what is going on? And oftentimes when that happens, it is because the defense is presenting to the offense something the offense did not expect. And that takes the gears grinding to adjust to get to a place at which you can now beat what you're seeing in real time. And that's not easy. It's hard enough for even me, who this is my job, to identify what a defense is doing in real time. So you have to identify it. Then you have to find a way to adjust the correct strategy. Then the players have to hear that strategy and enact it in real time. Not an easy thing. Some are better at it than others. It's a subject that I've talked a lot about this year. I think this Vikings staff and the players' aptitude allows the Vikings to be as good at this as you can probably be. And so, with Matt LaFleur, they probably finally got to some answers, and the Vikings were more tired, and that combination gave up the lead. Now, in general, I mean, I think Some of it, the Vikings offense stalls out down the stretch. Some of it, the defense, like I said, they get gassed. Sometimes the defense gives up touchdowns in the red zone. And previously they had held up in the red zone. So it could be a number of things. But I thought that was the specific of yesterday. Let's see here. Skull Fan at Skull Warrior. Can B-Flow stop Ben Johnson? Can he stop it, Ben Johnson? I don't know if you can stop Ben Johnson. Can he stick with Ben Johnson? Can he out adapt Ben Johnson? Like I think it's possible. And it's gonna be a really, really tough test. The Packers are a very good offense. That running game is very difficult. But the Lions, I mean, it is as dynamic as you're going to find across the league. In my opinion, this is probably the best. Probably the best offensive coordinator who's not a head coach play caller, and it's probably the best defensive coordinator who's not a head coach play caller, whatever. And you got these two guys facing off in the grand finale of the 2024 season, which is actually going to be in 2025. It's in Detroit, a town that wants this as bad as ever for a team like the Vikings that is overachieving beyond belief. I mean, what the heck more could you want? But for Brian Flores, it's going to be what it always is. Can you be versatile enough coverage-wise to give Jared Goff weird looks? And then can you stop Jahmyr Gibbs, who we saw earlier this year when he scooted past Cam Bynum for like a 40-yard touchdown, which was the first like explosive run that the Vikings had seen all year. Can you stop that guy and make things tough for Jared Goff? Not an easy challenge at all whatsoever. Let's see here. Dustin Roberts, an avid listener, always appreciate him. Do you think it's the Vikings or KOC's game plan every week to just run up the score as high and as fast as they can and then hold on for dear life and hope they win? No. I mean, I think that's a general way to look at it. I think the plan is often to generate a lead so that then the defense can take more chances. And when you're a defense that thrives off turnovers, and this defense is one, they've turned the ball over in every single game this year, which is incredible. And you are able to take more chances, both from a pass rush standpoint and both from a coverage standpoint. And you make the offense one-dimensional, which just raises your probabilities in what you're doing. I think that's just an optimal plan for the style that they want to play. But and this is why I think the last few weeks, specifically Seattle, Chicago, and the Arizona game were so important. It is not as if the Vikings cannot come from behind. They've done it. They proved it. They proved it in Seattle. They proved it in Chicago in overtime. They weren't behind, but they were tied in a gotta-have-it situation. Then they came back down 19-6 against the Cardinals. And so they have proven that they can win the other way. But if you were asking Kevin O'Connell, and it's a true serum situation, and it's like, what do you like? How do you want to play the game? I think it is in the vein of the idea you're talking about, Dustin, where you put maximum pressure on the team as early as possible and hope that ultimately they fold or break. Let's see here. Ben from MN, are you worried about the kicker? So you guys know I'm from Alabama. And Will Reichard, the Vikings kicker, who is a rookie, he kicked at Alabama for 5 years, I believe, maybe 6. Before Will Reichard got to Alabama, there was, if you lived in Alabama, you knew that it was like the one thing Nick Saban could not figure out was kicking. It was like Alabama was cursed. And when Will Reichard was being recruited to Alabama, his friends would tell him, don't go there. You're a great kicker. You're going to be phenomenal. You're going to play in the NFL. Don't go there. It'll ruin your career. And he said, to heck with that. If you guys think it's cursed and you guys think it's not going to work, I'm so confident in myself that I'm going to go make it happen. And he went to Alabama and became the all-time leading kicker in college football. And he kicked in the biggest of moments in the biggest of games. And so for that reason, knowing that background, I am not exceptionally worried. Now, that clip might backfire horrendously. It really might. But I just have seen this guy so many times in big moments. I mean, the biggest you could get before you get to the NFL and you're on this stage. I have seen him come through. I mean, the one from 57 yards on Sunday that hit the crossbar, that was a pretty close kick. The doink, I mean, that was a close one too. I mean, so it's not like he is shanking the ball. It's not like crazy draws, crazy fades. And again, we're getting into an area of football that is very mental. It's very confidence, conviction based. And I just know that he does it for reasons beyond like making kicks on Sundays, winning game. I mean, it is winning games, but like, I mean, the reason Will Reichard kicks is because when he was young, his dad thought he needed to get tougher. His dad signed him up for kicking. Will didn't really want to do it. He did it. He became great. His dad, when he was in high school, the reason that he ever kicked, passed away of cancer. And so, I mean, that's Will kicks in honor of his father. That's really the reality. And so I think that he just does it for something more. I just am not there yet. Again, could backfire. And maybe you guys are like, oh, you don't know the history. I know the history. I really do. But it's just a gut feel that I have. And sometimes in this job, as much as I like to stick to the metrics and much as I like to be objective and stick on the fence of making an opinion on both sides, because it's just not comfortable for me all the time. Like I just am not worried about Will Reichard, and that's for better or for worse. At Sam Olson 6969. I wonder why he chose those numbers. Favorite moment from yesterday. Good question. My favorite moment from yesterday. I mean, I love that Jordan Addison route where he runs the little, I heard someone on Twitter, the bow and go. I don't know whatever the heck that is, but it was a hitch that turned into a wheel. And then the offensive line picks up a double team that was a protection issue that was unplanned. And then Sam Darnold throws a perfect pass. Just the level of execution there was just absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, I guess that's the in-game moment. The out-of-game moment was just standing next to Gilmore and Harrison Smith in their lockers after the game and just watching them kind of go back and forth about how much fun that was, how tired they were, how much they've enjoyed all of this. I mean, Stephon Gilmore asked him, like, because he had other opportunities, how grateful are you that you signed here? He's like, I'm so happy, man. Like, I'm just so happy. And you could tell like how much it means to him to just be a part of this. So that's what I'd say. Sweatpants Chef asks, is the end of game management a concern? End of half game management a concern? I didn't think that was KOC's like best clock management moment. I couldn't really understand why timeouts were not called in that sequence. But as I've said on the podcast before, like the fact that moment among all of them was as glaring as it was is a sign of how effective they've been at clock management since he's been here. I really feel like they've done a very solid job. And on the outside, we always act like this thing is so easy, and maybe it is. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I'm not. It's not a concern for me because I see it more of as a one-off than a trend. That's the reality. Let's see here. What other questions do we have? Vikings lead. How is JJ McCarthy's rehabilitation coming? So JJ was on the field Sunday. I could be wrong about this, but it was the first time I've seen him back down on the field in a little bit. And he was very engaged. Even in the locker room after I saw him and Kevin O'Connell like handshake before Kevin talked to Sam Darnold. And like I just haven't seen JJ a ton in their post game. So there was that. I will also say it sounds like last week this thing's going in stages in terms of his rehab. It sounds like there was a positive step taken last week in terms of his mobility. That's probably all I'm going to get into. But it sounds like things are progressing. He's walking around good in the locker room. I've seen him more than I have kind of throughout the midpoint of the year. So all that sounds pretty good. It's a good question. Let's see here. Wyatt S version. What is the chance Flores is still with us next year? I mean, we've talked about this so much on the podcast, and you guys know how I've talked about it. It is that Brian Flores and the job he has done will warrant interviews and will warrant an opportunity. I mean, it's just undeniable how good they've been defensively and how good of a job from a coaching standpoint he's done and how much these players rally around him. So that's just the reality. Now, there's all the other stuff, the ongoing lawsuit, the past conversations that players have had about just like his seriousness and demanding nature, and all that stuff is relevant and matters as teams hire guys for culture. But I mean, if you're an opposing team to me and you just have any awareness, and I don't give all these, who knows if all these teams have the ultimate awareness, but if you have awareness of where this defense was in 2022 and what they've done in the last 2 years and the player signings they've made and how those players have been maximized and the stunt games they run up front and the coverages they run on the back end and the tackling ability and overcoming certain obstacles. I mean, I don't know how you could not look at this guy and be like, I mean, I put it in his hands and it may not be perfect, but I mean, just such a talented coach. So the chances, it's hard for me to really say. But I mean, he didn't get interviews last year. If he goes this offseason cycle and doesn't get interviews, I think that's just absolutely crazy, even with everything else, because of how good of a job that he's done. So that's what I'll say. Mark Emmons, Sports Guy 0. What percentage chance would you give these three situations based on team sentiment? Tag and trade Darnold, tag and keep Darnold, extend Darnold. So here's a lesson on the sports media in 2024. If I give percentages on these three things, someone who runs a Twitter account, understandably, I get it. Engagement's great. I'd run a Twitter account too if I could. In fact, I do. They will take whatever percentages I have and they will put them out publicly, and then it will be a referendum on whatever happens. And so that's why playing this game is often very it's tough. Instead of giving you percentages and ducking completely from your question, I'm not going to do that. But I do want to say something that I haven't talked about within this conversation. And if you've listened to me, like the summary of what I've said about the future conversation between Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy, all that it's not just, is it Sam or is it JJ? No, it is, you're paying Sam what? And how does that affect your roster building everywhere else? You're paying JJ what, or you're letting go of Sam. How does that affect you everywhere else? Now, to get into your question a little bit, Mark, if you tag Sam Darnold, you can definitely still trade him. And another team might be willing to trade you a first-round pick for Sam Darnold. So you could generate a first-round pick and all of the resources that you could get from the money that they would have available to them to spend on free agent players. That's an enticing thing. If you tag and keep Darnold, they have the cap space to do that. So let's just say you tag them, the tag number is $41 million. The Vikings would probably have around $25 million-ish to spend in free agency or to spend via extensions that they pay to players. Now, notice when I say that, to spend in free agency, you're losing Byron Murphy and Cam Bynum specifically to free agency. $25 million probably is not enough to keep both those guys, and it's definitely not enough to keep both those guys and then add elsewhere. So your offensive line would probably be a lot of the same. Again, your cornerbacks, you might be relying on Mekhi Blackman, or safety, you might be relying on Theo Jackson. You guys might listen to this and be like, I'm okay with that, whatever. But that's just the reality. And then extending Darnold is also, I mean, they can do it. They could do it. Now it would become a question of how long, what are the guarantees? What does that mean for JJ McCarthy? I mean, it brings a lot of that at play. And so that's the reality. But the one thing that I started with this answer, Mark, that I wanted to get across that I have not talked about, and a buddy brought this up to me on Saturday night, but it is this. If the Vikings were to move on from Sam Darnold, and then JJ McCarthy's the starter, like how much pressure would then fall on a young guy who has never played an NFL game to follow up a season that is going to end however it ends, but was as exciting and as thrilling and as positive as this one was. I mean, that is a lot of pressure. Now, the argument to that would be that two things. Well, he played at Michigan and he won a national championship. He's played in high pressure. He performed on third down at high leverage. All that's fair. And he has an aura and all that. That is 100% correct. And the other argument to it would be, well, there would be pressure too for Sam Darnold if he comes back on the franchise tag, that he has to perform the same way that he played this year. And to that, I would follow up and I would ask, well, which would you bank more on? Sam Darnold in another year in the system, now with the experience that he's had to reproduce what he's done, or J.J. McCarthy, who's never done it at this level, lifting beyond kind of the normal expectations for a young rookie quarterback. I'd probably say the Darnold path is more likely. But again, like I said, it is not just Sam's performance versus JJ's performance. It is the resources that this entire decision kind of leaves you with or doesn't leave you with. And so that's what I say. I know how much like Kevin O'Connell and this staff believes in not placing a quarterback in a position that is unfair to them or in a position that is suboptimal for their long-term development. And I would ask the question, whether the answer is yes or no, would that be an unfair or suboptimal situation for his development to have him now be the person following this Sam Darnold productive season? And then if it's let's say it's okay, they move on from Sam Darnold, but then it's a bridge quarterback-ish with J.J. McCarthy. I mean, that's a lot of pressure on a Daniel Jones, a lot of pressure maybe that Sam Darnold had prior to this season, but to just bank that you just reproduce it because you've got Kevin O'Connell and you've got this receiving core and this skill group. I mean, there are so many, like, to me, that mitigates, and I've said this before too, to just think that you can just reproduce this. It mitigates the chemistry that is individual to this specific team in this specific situation, and it mitigates just the amount of talent that Sam Darnold has. And again, I'm not saying that to be like, you got to bring him back. It's a complex conversation because there are a lot of aspects at play. And the aspect that I haven't talked about beyond what we've just discussed is, I mean, Kevin O'Connell, with the year he's done, he's probably going to get an extension at some point. It's going to be a very hefty extension, and it's probably going to come with some major influence. And so how much of the decision will be, he's definitely going to influence it, but will he make it? Will front office have a perspective? I mean, there's a lot of dynamics to this that make it as complex as it is. And we want to talk about it, and we have to talk about it, and it's relevant and all that. But I just don't want to get lost in it considering how much fun this all has been. Joshua Briscoe, radio guy in Kansas City, I love to death, said KOC versus Andy Reid for Coach of the Year. Discuss. To me, it's not. Andy Reid is one of the best of all time. He has an incredible offense. They've done it with guys hurt. They've done it in different ways. The defense has held up. They've done it through injuries. The job he's done is not shocking because he's done it for so long. And that doesn't mean just because you've done it for so long doesn't mean you shouldn't be up for Coach of the Year. So let me make that very clear. Like, I think Andy Reid has done an underratedly incredible job this year because of the dynamics, but also he has Patrick Mahomes. And when you have Patrick Mahomes and you have and it's not just Patrick Mahomes, it's the continuity. You have the defensive continuity that they've had. Kevin O'Connell is a coach without the continuity of the quarterback, without the continuity of like 7 of the defensive starters, and then with an over-under of 6.5. I mean, they've won 14 games. They've more than doubled their over-under. They're vying for the number 1 seed in the NFC North. I mean, you've honestly helped to revive a highly touted quarterback's career. To me, it's not even close, and it's Kevin O'Connell. Maybe I'm too close to it, but that's the reality. I'll end with this. Coach Simons, Red Rabbit Pizza or Red Cow Burger? I'm going to say Red Cow Burger, but I love those two restaurants. And just like I said with Station 280, I'm not endorsing them, but if they call me and they said, Alec, we love your podcast. We heard you love that 60-40 bacon burger, and we want to, and I'd be like, heck yeah, let's roll. We'll paint this thing red, dude. No, couldn't do that, but could do whatever else red cow, red rabbit wants. It's a phenomenal question. Let's see if there's anything else that I did not get to. It was very fun, as it always is. Yeah, we'll end it there. I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate you guys listening to me run through those questions. It's always a good time early in the week. I hope you guys enjoy listening as much as I enjoy doing it. We will be back later this week. Maybe one, maybe two. Got to figure things out. Got some stories to write, but cannot wait for Sunday. You'll hear from me before then about my excitement for this game. But like I tweeted this, like, this is why you do this. This is why you play. This is why you coach. For me, like, you never know when you get into seasons what you're going to see. But to see a group come together this way, and to see a fan base and a readership and a listenership that is enjoying it as much as you guys are, it's just a freaking blast. If you made it this way, all this way, I appreciate it. Please rate, review us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out. Would really appreciate that. But that'll do it for episode 46 of the Alec Lewis Show. Stay tuned later this week. More coming at you. Have a great early part of your week, and we will talk to you guys very, very soon.